Hi, I'm Lauren Gleason, registered dietitian and board certified specialist in kidney nutrition, and today I want to talk about cereal. So I'm going to talk about what to look for in a cereal, what to avoid, and at the end I'm going to share a list of kidney-friendly cereals that are on the market today that check all those boxes. So first up, I'm going to talk about protein. So some people with kidney disease benefit from eating less protein, especially if they're in the later stages and they're really trying to reduce the symptoms of diminished kidney function. But that does not mean that we have to find the lowest protein versions of every food that we eat, and cereal is one of those foods. The cereals that made my list have anywhere from 2 to 9 grams of protein per serving. And your body needs protein to function optimally. So the goal is not to eat as little as possible here. Compared to some traditional breakfasts like bacon and eggs, cereal's already a lower protein option, and there is also more and more research to support that getting more protein from plant sources is better for your kidneys than animal sources. And protein in cereal is typically considered plant protein. And then again, what you pair it with matters too. So if you're pairing your cereal with like a high protein dairy milk or Greek yogurt, you might want to choose a lower protein cereal. But if you're using a low protein plant-based milk, it might be fine to choose a higher protein cereal. All depends on your needs and what else you eat in a day. But overall, protein wouldn't be the biggest concern of mine when it comes to picking out a kidney-friendly cereal. Another thing that I wouldn't worry too much about is potassium, and that's going to trip a lot of people up. Most people with kidney disease who are not on dialysis don't need to be watching their potassium intake nearly as much as they are. And in some cases, restricting potassium intake can actually do more harm than good. In fact, there's a lot of things that can impact potassium levels that really have nothing to do with the potassium content of food. And I actually have a free mini course you can sign up for if you want to review 5 ways to manage potassium that have nothing to do with the potassium content of the food that you eat. You should see like a pop-up somewhere on this screen to sign up, but I'll also include a link in the description of this video for anybody who's interested. All that being said, maybe you are still concerned, or maybe your healthcare provider has told you to watch your potassium. If that's the case, you'll be pleased to know that most cereals are considered low potassium foods. Now, I personally define a low potassium food as any food that has less potassium than calories. So if you eat 2,000 calories a day and you only ever eat foods with less potassium than calories, then when you add it all up, you're going to be eating less than 2,000 milligrams of potassium for the day. And that, to me, is a very low potassium day. And again, most people who are not on dialysis do not need to be striving for something that low. But it's just kind of an easy way to glance at things and know, is this a low potassium food? So if you look at a lot of cereals, more often than not, they're going to have more calories than potassium, and I have an example here on the screen of this Purely Elizabeth cereal. It's got 240 calories and only 200 milligrams of potassium. So I would definitely consider this a low potassium food. And again, protein, potassium, these are not two of the top things that I'm looking at when it comes to looking to see whether a cereal is going to be kidney friendly. One thing I do recommend paying a bit more attention to is the sodium content of cereal. So even if cereal doesn't taste salty, it can still pack in a surprising amount of sodium. And if you're living with CKD, limiting sodium is it's going to be key for managing blood pressure and fluid balance. The general guideline is to stay under 2,300 milligrams per day. For most foods, including cereal, I like to keep it simple. Choose cereals with fewer milligrams of sodium than calories. So for an example, this cereal here has 160 calories and 230 milligrams of sodium. So it's got more sodium than calories. I would probably skip this cereal and look for one with less sodium. If you've already mapped out the rest of your day and you've got a lot of wiggle room, like a lot of my clients do, then you can choose a higher sodium option. But I think that most people are going to want to stick with a lower sodium choice and save their sodium for something that's actually supposed to taste salty. Next thing I would pay attention to is phosphorus. And cereal is really tricky because a lot of cereals will actually list out phosphorus on the nutrition facts label. So for example, Quaker Oat Squares lists out 190 milligrams of phosphorus on their food label. And I've seen a lot of people shun foods because they list out the phosphorus. Manufacturers are not required to list phosphorus on their label, so you're really not going to see it that often. Cereal is kind of an aberration where they usually do actually list it out. As a kidney dietitian, I never look at this number, and I encourage my patients not to look at it either. And the reason I don't look at it is because this number doesn't tell me anything about how much phosphorus will actually be absorbed by the body. For this particular cereal, all of the phosphorus is naturally occurring, and phosphorus that is naturally occurring is not well absorbed by the body. Compare that to Cheerios, which contain a phosphorus additive. I'm more worried about the phosphorus additives than I am about the natural phosphorus. If you ever see the milligrams of phosphorus listed on a nutrition fact label, just ignore it. Focus your attention on the ingredient list to avoid foods that have any ingredients with the letters PHOS in them. If you see that PHOS, that means that that particular ingredient is a phosphorus additive, and we don't want that. Next up, let's look at added sugar. So sugar is really tricky in cereals because a lot of cereals are kind of just glorified candy with how much sugar is added to them, like the label I've got shown here for Multimeal Golden Puffs. It's got 21 grams of sugar in a cup. Now, if you're actually eating cereal for your dessert and you're sticking to the recommended sugar intake for the day, then by all means, enjoy a sweeter cereal if it's otherwise kidney friendly. But if cereal is something that you are trying to include as part of a well-rounded breakfast, I would aim for cereals that have less sugar in them than this. So the American Heart Association recommends no more than 25 grams per day for women and 36 grams for men. So the cereal that I have shown on the screen is almost at the max amount for a woman for the day. So definitely want to aim for a cereal that's got less sugar than this. Next, let's take a look at iron. Some cereals are fortified with iron, which can be both a blessing and a curse depending on your situation. People with CKD can be prone to iron deficiency and anemia, and it's important to get enough iron in your day, but we don't necessarily want to get too much. So the recommended intake is 18 milligrams a day for women aged 19 to 50, and then 8 milligrams a day for men and postmenopausal women. So the percent that you see listed on food labels is based on the 18 milligrams. So with this label that I'm showing on the screen now, which is for those Quaker Oat squares I was showing you earlier, it's showing 16.5 milligrams of iron per serving, and it says it's 90% of the daily value. Even though it only says 90%, it's actually more than enough iron for a lot of people. So if you kind of look back up there, maybe it's 90% if you're still a female that is menstruating, but if you're a man or if you're a postmenopausal woman, this 16.5 milligrams of iron is way more than 90% of what you need. So if you are taking a multivitamin that has iron in it, you probably don't need to seek out a cereal that has extra iron in it. So on the other hand, if you aren't supplementing with iron or your doctor has said that you are iron deficient, then finding a convenient source of iron might be a good idea. So depending on your circumstances, you might want to avoid the iron fortified cereals, or you might actually want to intentionally seek one out. And then the last nutrient I'll highlight is fiber. So fiber is great for blood sugar, gut health, inflammation. It might even help with potassium balance, which is something I discuss in that 5 ways to control potassium mini course. Most adults should aim for at least 25 grams of fiber per day, but a lot of people fall short of that. If you are one of those people, I would probably focus on choosing a cereal that has at least 5 grams of fiber per serving to kind of help you get to that 25. Or if you prefer one of the lower fiber ones, just be sure to pair your cereal with some high fiber fruit to sort of balance things out. Now, in terms of what our cereal options are, I'm going to include a link in the description of this video to my website where I list out all the options that I have found. Manufacturers change their formulations, and I do try to keep the list updated, so the options will change from time to time. But for each cereal that you see on my website here, you'll see that they have a picture of one of the flavors. I include the nutrition info that was posted online for that particular flavor. And then I'll even put like a little paragraph underneath with some notes about the nutrition. And then below that is an icon to check prices and reviews. So, and if you keep scrolling, you'll see all the different options that I have here. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.